Tag TV, and Tag Radio. Technology now has a voice of innovation and information. Get it on www.tagtvonline.com. It all began in 1958, a more electrical experiment in video game called Tennis for Two. The video game industry, known today as interactive entertainment, it all began in the mid-'70s and was considered by most as little more than mere curiosity. But wait a minute. By 2007, the computer and video game industry took in nearly $9.5 billion, and that was in the United States alone. And that's just the obvious aspects of its impact. The computer world of today owes many of its more dynamic innovations to the gaming industry. Sound cards, graphical user interfaces, the CD-ROM. For that matter, Unix was developed in part so programmers could play a space travel game. Enter MMO, the massively multiplayer online game, by necessity played over the Internet and with more than a mere personal computer, but with dedicated consoles like Xbox 360, PlayStation, Nintendo, and the latest Wii, with game names like The Realm, Ultima, EverQuest, Final Fantasy, Anarchy Online, Star Wars, and Matrix Online, and soon a Bluetooth MMO in development called The Shadow of Legend. But the heavyweight champion of all MMOs is World of Warcraft, with more than 60% of the player base and upwards of 11 million subscribers worldwide. Greetings, everyone. It's Tuesday, July 1st, 2008, and this is Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mantella. The massively multiplayer online game. Is it Georgia's next big technology boom? Tino speaks with Mike Tinney, U.S. President, CCP Games, of Reykjavik, Iceland, and with North America headquarters right here in Stone Mountain. Mike is a leading force in the industry and has created and merged gaming companies in the early 90s to expand White Wolf Publishing and develop Mind's Eye Theater. By early 2000, he was appointed president and CEO of White Wolf that later merged with Iceland's CCP Games in 2006. The video game industry and interactive entertainment, a look into the future of its market size and the edge of technology, it continues to move further and further out. As Tino Tech Talks with the president of CCP Games North America, Mike Tinney.
Mike, thanks for joining me on Tech Talk.
Oh, my pleasure.
You know, I was around in the early days, so I'm dating myself, when you could just sit, go to a place and play Pac-Man or buy the little Nintendo for home use, and it's really come a long way at this point. And so how do video game companies plan for future technology?
Well, mostly through just good communication with the existing technology makers. I mean, most video game companies are in touch with IBM and Microsoft, NVIDIA, the graphics card, several of the graphics cards companies. And those companies and the video game companies just have an active collaborative relationship, so that when new video cards are coming out, we get them ahead of time, we test them, we make sure that they work with our software. If there's special needs or technology challenges we're facing, a lot of times these companies are active in helping to solve them. So good communication and cooperation is one of the keys for us.
So the advancement in technology is driving the market, or people and I guess with talent and ideas are utilizing that technology? I mean, what are you seeing in terms of how this all works?
Well, I for myself, I perceive that to be mostly a hand-in-hand thing. You've got consoles like the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 that certainly set the bar that then game developers rise to create content for. And you'll often see in the first year of a new console's release, most of the game publishers out there aren't really taking full advantage of the console's technological capabilities. Mm-hmm. But on the PC, it's a little different in that the PC is much more of an incremental march forward in terms of its technological capabilities.
Right.
And you have a much larger range of capabilities that the PC has. So when you design a product for the PC, which is what our company focuses on, you end up having to design something that runs on a wide variety of technological specifications.
Now, I think probably because our listening audience are in the technology field, some of them certainly, maybe the majority will know what MMO is, but this is massively multiplayer online games. And as I understand, this just basically means that it's the mass collaboration in the gaming industry. So this is where people can play online together. So is that a good definition of MMO?
Yeah, it's pretty spot on. I would add that for the most part, an MMO is a specific kind of game, or whether it's a disc that you put into your PlayStation or a game that you download onto your PC. It'll be an application that you launch, and it connects you to a server that the company that creates the MMO hosts, and you log into that server along with 100,000 other people from around the world, and you all play in that same virtual environment. So it's a one part a personal experience, but one part a shared experience, because the people that you meet in that game are often played by other human beings in another part of the country or another part of the world.
Do you have any stats, Mike, on the movement in respect to people joining in these, we'll call them mass collaboration again, use of the games together versus, go back to the old days where you might play with a person or, something along those lines? Is the tendency, it would seem like the tendency would be looking for opportunities for gaming that you can participate in a more of a social networking setting?
Yeah, I think that's the direction games are going. We've certainly seen an uptick there. We believe it's the next frontier for gaming. There's huge benefits for everybody in that environment. The biggest one for players is that they find a peer group that plays the same hobby that they play, and they play it together. And in the world we live in, so often you find yourself as an adult in a different city from some of your childhood friends, and this is a great opportunity to reconnect socially with them. But you also find yourself having an opportunity to meet other people that you would have never met before from completely different walks of life that happen to share the same hobby. And it gives you the chance to develop real friendships through these games.
Now, we know the young people are playing these games. I would say, the under 20s, but is there this closet culture, if you will, of older Americans that are picking up on this phenomena?
I think so. I mean, like you were saying earlier in the interview, you sort of dated yourself by saying that you used to play in arcades, and a lot of us did. And, that generation hasn't gone away. We're still out there, and we still like games. And, our demographics with EVE Online are quite spread out. EVE is a technically complex game, and most of our players are over 25.
Interesting. Well, what's CCP's role in the gaming community?
We're a little bit of a maverick. We are the largest independent developer and publisher in the MMO space. We're privately held. We don't have our wagon hitched to any of the large publishers like Sony or THQ or anybody like that, and those are all good folks. We just happen to have developed a business model that doesn't require it, and it gives us a lot of creative flexibility that other studios, some have earned and some have not. But being independent gives us the chance to talk directly with our fans, to communicate with them 100%, to create product that serves their needs, and it's worked out great for us so far.
Now, was the company actually founded in Iceland, and you're the North American rep, or how's that?
That's correct. The company was founded in Iceland in 1996, and it launched EVE Online in 2003, and EVE Online has grown every year since then. And we had a company here in Georgia called White Wolf Publishing that was very active in the paper game space, board games and books and things like that. But we recognized MMOs as the evolution of what we felt was the modern interactive game experience, and looked for a partner and found that in CCP. And as a result of the merger, White Wolf became CCP North America and the North American office for this company.
Most people wouldn't think of Iceland as a technology hub, but actually, as I understand, there's quite a bit of technology leadership in Iceland.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing country. Their population is about 300,000 people. They have several world-leading categories. They have the largest and most successful prosthetic company in the world.
Well, that's interesting.
In Iceland, they have one of the largest generic pharmaceutical companies in Iceland. Their banks recently exploded into action in the Nordic and Northern European banking communities. It's a highly educated country. Their literacy rate is 100%, which not a lot of countries can claim.
No.
And there's just a ton of little facts about Iceland. I would recommend everybody just take a look. It's a remarkable little place.
So going back to our theme here, we talked a little bit about this, but do you have any other thoughts as if you were to predict the future of gaming and how CCP is going to adapt to it? What might it look like?
I think socially emergent behaviors are kind of where gaming is going to continue to go. It's these online collaborative experiences where a group of players creates a gaming experience that a single player and a team of programmers cannot create together. So when you get 100,000 people into a shared environment, playing in that environment together, or in our case, over 200,000 people in that same environment, you have amazing things start to happen as a result of what that collective group of individuals decides to do, and that creates a game experience that is more like a society in the real world than any single-player game experience on a platform could possibly be.
It's many of us, and TAG is part of this direction that's looking at how to maximize social networking for communication and business. Do you see the gaming industry ahead of the? They figured it out more effectively than the business community. Is the business community going to pick up on this use of gaming as a way? We were at Georgia Tech the other day, for example, at their GTRI, and they showed us their virtual world and how people are coming to the world with avatars, and they're being able to take part in education through there. So it's almost like the gaming's driving education and business side.
I hadn't heard that about Georgia Tech. That's very interesting. But I think they sort of mentor each other in different ways. Certainly, the business side has, or the business philosophy has done a lot to help the gaming industry grow up over the last decade and a half. And I think it would only be fair if the gaming industry paid it back with making education in some areas fun to a group of people that maybe would have turned it aside in the past.
So any time there's an emerging business, there's a set of challenges. What kind of challenges is the gaming industry facing, specifically related to MMOs and virtual worlds?
Well, there's a handful. I described it before as a frontier, and I really do still think that it is. Very few companies in the space have figured out how to make a successful MMO. You have a lot of challenges on the technology side to create just an infrastructure that will support a server structure, a series of connected computers that will allow thousands and thousands of people to log in simultaneously and participate in a virtual world. And once you master the technology aspect of it, which even for experienced game companies is an ever-increasing challenge as PC specifications change over time and things like that, you have a content challenge of creating a virtual world that is engaging and entertaining. and something that people want to spend their time with. So those two challenges on the creative and technology side are extremely difficult to crack, and very few companies have successfully cracked them. And usually a company will crack the technology side before they crack the content side.
Is there a standard revenue model? Are companies figuring out how to generate a net revenue on this thing?
Yeah, these games are pretty revenue friendly if you can make them work. And if you have a failure, it's a very expensive failure. But it's back when these things first launched, when Ultima Online and EverQuest first came out, their revenue model was a subscription base. So you would pay somewhere between $10 and $15 a month, and you would be able to log. That would buy you the subscription to log into that virtual world and play in that world as much as you wanted to. Asia has the Asian market has taken that and changed the model so that they use a very free-to-play model with microtransactions. So it costs you nothing to play the game, but if you want an advantage in the game, or if you want to go someplace in the game that other players can't get to, you pay a small amount of money for that on a one-time basis in order to do that. And in that scenario, about 10% of the players pay all of the revenue that the company makes off of the game.
That's interesting. Is that going to move to the U.S., do you think? Or?
It started to. There are some Asian companies that have begun to import their games. There are some U.S. companies that are emulating them, and neither one is a bad business model. They both seem to be working. But the trick, we think, with a subscription-based MMO is if you have a world and an intellectual property that supports it, that will support and drive an ongoing revenue model for a subscription. And then there's also talk, about advertising in game as well.
Yeah, that's just what I was going to ask. How reliant is it on advertising? But I know, like in Second Life, as an example, people are, starting to advertise there. And but that right now, it's not as reliant on advertising as either subscription or the micro model that you described.
It's probably the newest of the three, and most game designers are artists at their core and want to make sure that they first create a game that's fun and engaging, and not one that's dependent on advertising. But we think that if you can get advertising into a game that's in context and doesn't break immersion, you can have a pretty successful model there.
Well, from my vantage point, it's actually refreshing to see that there's a business out there that is online that isn't solely reliant on advertising. People can pay subscriptions, and there's other ways to collect revenue. It's a little bit safer model than everybody in the world looking at advertising as the only possible revenue stream for an online company. It makes it a little bit more challenging, it seems to me. So with that, Mike, thank you for joining me on Tech Talk today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.